Shalom, shalom.
All right, shalom, shalom.
Well,
How's everything?
it's going well, Rabbi. Baruch Hashem.
Going well.
How's it going on your end?
Yeah, the thing is, we're pushing through. We're pushing through. Um, there's always new challenges. There's always new, you know, I guess when you take your ego out of, life, you kind of like see a lot of the things that arise is like, whoa, like not so much that you had anything to do with it. It's just more so that it just happened, right? You woke up in the morning and this was the weather, right? So you kind of have to, then it's on you to respond how you dress.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, okay, so outside that, so I want to say in terms of the learning we do today, I want to have the learning should be in the merit of all the people that are struggling with different things around the world, and maybe they're getting close to like maybe depression or sadness or despair. And so the light that we create when we're learning, will come into this world and it will go to those people, right? Because we have them in mind. All right. Okay. So we're going to talk about something really amazing. I mean, obviously we're back in Rav Ashlag. We're resettling, rearranging. And through, this idea, it's important to recap on one of the ideas, right? Because this is like one of the big concepts of our generation. So Rav Ashlag teaches in this last class that we did prior to this that from the age of a child's born to the age of 13, the soul is very much rooted in this aspect of selfishness, right? The desire to receive for oneself, right? This is this main intelligence. Now the thing is, it says when it hits the age of 13, it's kind of like this inner aspect of the soul starts to like blossom, right? But the thing is, it only blossoms as much as it's fed Torah, meaning good values, good morals, these types of things, right? And so this aspect of this inner aspect of the soul, right? It's like when we're all kids, we used to do like to have the bean and we put it in a cup with the soil and then we'd water it and it'll grow. So that bean, grows into a different form, right? At a certain pace, right? It starts to grow roots, right? And so this idea of the soul, when it reaches the aspect of 13, this inner aspect of this inner quality is matured from that point on. And this inner quality takes the kid from to understanding the severity of things, right? To understand, what we would call, say, manhood, or becoming a woman, or being a leader. Things become valuable, right? You give a young kid, $1 million, like, he's not going to be thinking about, investments, right? So it's just to say that like this inequality. So this inequality is a big concept because this inequality is basically the main like thing for everything, right? Which is the aspect of our uniqueness, right? Our uniqueness is expressed, it starts to express itself at past the age of 13. And this uniqueness is this inequality. And the sages teach is to magnify that inequality comes through the observance of the Torah and the deepening of it. And as a kid gets older, he'll see how important it is and how he should spend all of his time and all of his days into this type of thinking, right? As much as possible. And so this is the challenge, right? This is the challenge. The challenge is like us connecting to it, obviously within ourselves, right? And exploring this inner aspect of ourselves and saying like, hey, what is my uniqueness? Right? What is like, how do I look at things? How do I see things? One of the things you learn in yeshiva, and it's one of the things we talked about earlier with couples learning together, right? Is because it's like when we're in yeshiva, we have what like a chavrusa, like a friend, right? And we sit there and you see them all the time in the videos where you see these guys sitting at the table talking back and forth. But the thing is, one of the things you're learning in that experience is how to understand how he thinks, how he sees something, because you're both looking at the same page, right? And you both want to get to a place of complete clarity of what's being said. However, there's times where he would see it differently than you see it, right? And so now you got to figure out how to reconcile his pattern of thought, right? And so by doing that, you learn about your own thinking process, right? You learn about your own process, right? And so this process that we're talking about here is uniqueness, right? And so a lot of times in our society, this is one of the things I learned. When I first came to Israel, I was, kind of like dressed like how, similar how I am right now, right? In like blue shirt, nice stuff, right? But when I came, I saw everybody was wearing black and white, where I was, learning at, right? And it kind of threw me off because like my whole introduction to Torah, the Torah is about your uniqueness and how, this, all these, words you hear, you see it, everyone's doing their own thing in LA, right? So till you come here to Israel, you come here to Jerusalem, and so all of a sudden you see like everyone's like uniform, and it's all these different types of uniform. It's not just the black and white. There's other types of kippas, this, all these types of things, right? And so, and so you have to reconcile that. And one of the things that I learned through talking to people about it and these different things is that a person of Torah sees their uniqueness by what they do, not what they put on, right? In the world of like accessories and commerce and these types of things, it's all about like, hey, you got a purple wristband and pink glasses and gold teeth and your hat's, it's sideways with a propeller on the top of it. You have this whole thing, and they're like, man, you unique, man, you different. Man, all these colors you got up, man, you different, right? As where from a Torah standpoint is how we express ourselves, right? And the greatest form of expression is a mitzvah, right? Is doing one of the precepts that God has commanded us to do. When we're doing that aspect, that is the greatest expression of our uniqueness, to the point we should seek to have a personal relationship and develop ways that we do it, right? Because there's the mitzvah and then there's the tradition, right? There's the tradition how to do it. So the sages allow us to know what the halakha is, and there's different traditions on how to do it. So hey, learn all the different types of traditions for the sake of intellectual prowess, and then incorporate the parts that connect to you the most and add something even unique to it, right? Because that's the whole point. This is your expression. This is your thing. The way you light candles. Like after we learn Rav Ashlag, we're going to learn the halakas on candle lighting, right? But the point is just saying like that dynamic is just to say like, oh, okay, well, you know what? I'm expressing me. This is me and God, right? Yes, I get there's a Sephardic tradition and a Yemenite tradition and an Ashkenaz tradition and the Mizrahi tradition. Okay, all those traditions are great. And the people who created those traditions or when they came up, that was their uniqueness, right? It's just other people passed it on and on and on and on and on. And it's a thing. And it even spread in some levels. But it's some guy who starts singing it like this. It's some woman who cooked the dish like this. You know what I'm saying? And then it spread. They had guests and it became a thing. So it's very important to create that personal relationship with things, like even down to your personality. So we're gonna go to Rav Ashlag. Any points, any ideas on that? Okay, cool. All right. So sorry. So wait. So yeah, before we get to that, okay, so this is the best part. Okay. Hold on. Okay, so here's the best part. So the best part is like this. So, there's an idea that says that like there's a truth in everything, right? Everything, even the biggest story, the biggest lie, the biggest thing, there's a truth in there somewhere. There's an aspect of truth, or it couldn't exist, right? Does that mean you believe it? Does that mean you follow it? Does it mean it has a bearing on your life? No, not necessarily. But if you analyze it, everything that you hear, everything that you experience has a purpose, right? And so that's the approach to life, right? That everything has a purpose. So long story short, I was debating with this guy, about the whole situation here in the Middle East, going back and forth. And, and I have a pretty very neutral view of it, right? I love Palestinians, I love Israelis, I love everybody, but there's some fundamental truths that have to be accepted, right? Which is not the point for this discussion. But he got so upset with me. This guy, he started, he's an Arab guy. He got so upset with me, and he throws out, he starts throwing like ad hominem. One of the things he says, but America said your ancestors were 3/5 of a man. And I heard that, and I was just like, wow, that's deep. That's deep. And it's like, so why is that deep, right? Why is that deep? Because that the African. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it froze up right when you was about to say how deep it was.
But
It
yeah,
froze up.
I was thinking it was so deep because it was a part of like a fabric of American thought that these black people or these colored or these Negroes, these people came as slaves or slaves for that matter. These people were dealt with in society because America was supposed to be a place of equality for all of humanity, the whole thing, right? That was their slogans. So in order to justify subjugating these black people in the way that they did, or these slaves, they said, hey, they're not fully human. They're only 3/5 of a human. They're totally different from us. They're like, we found them in this jungle. It's almost like this type of thing, right? So you think about that, right? You think about that, right? And then you think about the fact that many of these people were descendants of Israelites, right? Who are on the west of Africa, right? Who are these tribes, right? And they had these traditions there. You could go there and fly on a plane and talk to them right now. They want to talk to you, right? And it's documented. It's a thing, right? And so when these people came, they had to remove that history, right? So part of removing that history is like, hey man, y'all not even fully human. Y'all not fully human. Now, when I think about it and I hear that, I say, well, what is Hashem saying to me right now, 2025, hearing that, right? And so what I realized is that the Torah teaches us, and this is what we're learning by Rav Ashlag right now. We're learning this by Rav Ashlag right now, right? That the human has 5 parts of the soul. Okay? The human has 5 parts of the soul. We start from the bottom. The bottom part of the soul is the nefesh. The level above the nefesh is ruach. The level above ruach is neshama. And then you have 2 levels above that, which are like chaya and yekida, which are like kind of like connected to this idea of surrounding light, right? So they're a greater expression of the neshama, but the main parts of the neshama that say Moshe Rabbeinu reached, right? Moshe Rabbeinu reached, all these different people, reach these levels, was the level of neshama. It was higher than ruach. He reached the level of neshama. Other people who reached greatness or reach the level of doing the mitzvahs are at the level of ruach. And then there's other level, which is the level of sorry. So I think I said that wrong. Neshama, right? Moshe Rabbeinu reached the level of neshama, right? And that, I think I said that. I'm not sure, but it just in case I didn't, neshama, and then underneath neshama is ruach, and then the level of beneath that is nefesh, right? So here's the thing. So the people who have the greatest desire to receive, those souls have all 5 parts. Okay? The people who don't have that desire to receive have 1 part, the nefesh, right? And the nefesh is connected to the animal soul, right? And then the level above that is like the ruach, like the wind, the spirit, and then the neshama is the embodiment of the total connection to the light force of the creator. But the nefesh soul, which is really rooted in body consciousness, is really the soul level of majority of the people in the world. They just kind of like live life. They want to wake up. They want to go to sleep. Hey, they're not bothered by that much. You know what I mean? They could just live. They're just, as long as their base needs are taken care of, they're good. They're not worried contemplating the mysteries of the universe, or staying up all at night trying to figure out this and that, and trying to want to connect to God on this really deep level. Hey, the concept of God is enough for them. Hey, put God on the wall. There it is. There, I'm good. He's right there. He's on the cross. He's naked. Hey, he's right there, right? And so that's their level, and that's all. That's the level of their soul is in a frame of nephesh. So that's why if you go to like say some of these institutions that support idols, right? It's all about energy and jubilee and shaking and this and that, because it's all rooted in the body. But then you go other places, like say if you go to a synagogue or a temple, it's all mental because you're connecting to a higher sphere of connecting to this divine. Some people root on in the physical expression, and then some people have a combination of both. Of course, it's still an aspect of it, it's still a part of our soul. We still have emotion and connecting and singing and probably 100%. But there's also this aspect of being able to contemplate the unseen reality, right? In the endless reality and how the endless reality is expressing itself in these low physical terms that we interact with every day, right? The tree is God humbling himself, right? So we could experience them in this way, right? So, so with that being said, when the white American told the African American that he was 3/5 of a human being, he says, "No, you have three levels of the soul. You have three. You have the nefesh, ruach, and the shama, right? You're operating at that level. You're at the level of Moshe Rabbeinu, and I just have a nefesh. So I'm going to treat you in the way that a person who has an animal soul would treat a person of a higher soul. Because I don't have a choice. I'm rooted in animal consciousness, survival, instinct, right? Power, control, everything in the physical sense, nothing beyond that. Aesop, right? Aesop, right? He was in this frame. Jacob was in the tent. Aesop was out hunting. So many of these people come from that nation, right? And so that nation that they come from, their souls are rooted in animalistic desires, right? And so when they go ahead.
Then that's powerful because when you think about it, you don't hear of Anglo-Saxon spirituals. That's you don't hear Anglo-Saxon spirituals or European spirituals.
Nope.
But out of the Negro, you have a whole body, whole universe of work, of literature, of poems that fall, songs that fall under the whole guise of Negro spirituals. When you really think about that, just the music, the literature, the poetry, the stories, all trying to connect back to God. But you don't have that in European literature. You don't have, it's almost absent.
Well, I think let's put it this way: it exists there, but it doesn't touch you. You know what I'm saying? For those people from that space, that stuff's holy. By dear John, Saint Priest Augustus, thou step forward with a red thing on, and they walk up, and everybody they just whoa, he's walking up. Augustus, what is up? That doesn't do anything for us. You see what I'm saying? We've tried. We thought something was wrong with us for not being able to connect to it. You know what I mean? We're like, man, what's wrong, man? Get it right. Get it right. So, but the thing is, the reality is that there's different levels of the soul, and actually, the person who wrote about it the most was an Ashkenazi Jew, and he wrote the Tanya, the Bala Tanya. He is responsible for starting the Chabad movement. He wrote on the whole condition of white Americans. I mean, of white Europeans. He wrote on their condition. He's the one who broke down the soul level. He said he's holding. I'm not going to go there. People recording me, but I'm just saying, like, it's just saying that he got. I'm saying the Bala Tanya. These are my words. The Bala Tanya says, "Hey, they're not fully human." That's where he took it to. That's what the Jews in Ukraine. He was writing that. This isn't a Sephardic rabbi who was writing this. This wasn't a Mizrahi rabbi. No, these were Ashkenaz rabbis who were dealing with Europeans. He says, no way these people could be human. They got this type of a soul. They inherently hate holiness, the whole thing, blah, blah, blah. And all that stuff that they engaged with them on was based off of their behavior to them. They're like, nah, man, you guys, we rough with y'all. You know what I mean? And so, unfortunately, some of that may have spread, in terms of outlook. But the bigger point is just saying that we have to understand a lot of wickedness we've experienced is in lieu of people that just literally had lower souls, and a lot of people don't want to accept that. But how do you justify? How could a human being want to just hang people? Period. How do you have parties where you're lynching parties, cutting their stomachs open? You're eating popcorn and cotton candy. It's no way you have a high soul. It's no way. It's no way. Pregnant women, like mass breeding of human beings, like it's no way. It's no way. You don't see that nowhere, no society. You know what I'm saying? Especially in the East. And so the point is just saying, so, you know, I forgive the lower souls, and even today, why are you so mad at us? Why do you have to destroy our situation? What does it matter if we make money? We're going to intermix with you anyways. What are you mad at? You know what I'm saying? What is going on, right? And then when you look at it from a standpoint of high souls to lower souls, then we could even go further and see certain blessings. Now, people may say this is a controversial point, but guess what? Making it illegal for intermarriage. I'm just saying, if you're saying that certain people were coming from the standpoint of Israelites and they were more behooved to maintain themselves for long enough for us to come along and be like, hey, let's get this consciousness going. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, go ahead.
And I believe it was 1994. There was the Rwanda massacre, right?
Mm.
And the world really just kind of sat back and just watched the Tutsis overthrow the Hutus, right? And this massacre lasted for about, I think, somewhere around about 4 months or so, three to 4 months, and they killed over 1 million people. Okay, and it said that they killed, the oppressors there killed faster than the whole Holocaust. Okay,
Mm.
within like 3 to 4 months, right? And I was sitting back, and as I begin to, we have always looked at this, but just, was this an experiment? What was this an experiment? Because I'm sorry, the Hutus have, if you look it up, they actually have Hebrewisms, right?
Mm.
And they were known to be a people group that migrated down to Rwanda, that they were not natives there, right? And some of them have some Hebrew backgrounds, but it makes you wonder if this was an experiment to see if through oppression, if you can develop a lower soul and to develop psychologically those that were 3/5, right? And through this oppression and this bondage would create a lower soul and just acting out on these animalistic behaviors. Because when you analyze what was done there, it's very similar to what you saw in Nazi Germany. It's very similar to what you saw in the Red Summer of 1919, or between 1917 and 1919 in this country. And so it almost seems like there's also this experiment that's going on to lower that soul level. Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, there's even the thing, even in the morning, when we say Shelo Asani Goy, right? Thank God that God didn't make me of the other nations, right? So there's an aspect that if a person defiles himself enough, that that their soul will go in that frame of the other nation, right? And they will have no affinity to the Torah. God forbid anyone should ever know such a thing. But the point is just saying that, so you could lose your stat. You could come back and work hard and do tshuva and repent and that. But even then, that's even a blessing to even be able to do that. You know what I mean? But the main point is to say that through this lens that we're going in, we could reassess it, because we could look at, okay, hey, Hashem says, no intermarriage. So we look at it like, man, we must be really something bad, man. They won't even let us marry with them, man. It's a law. you know, right? And then you can say, oh, well, they didn't want it for the plantations and the intermixing, and all that's true. But if you're saying, if we're holding by many of these people were descendants of Israelites that came through this slave trade, that was God's protection. God made sure that we were only able to come and connect to people of our own background, right? And we were forced, and then we look at segregation, right? After the plantation, they subjugated us to communities where we could only go. And if we left that community, the police will like, get back to your neighborhood, boy, right? Now we can look at that as, man, look how bad we can't even leave, man. You wanted to mix with those people? That's the power of the situation that that they've been living in a heathenistic state, and we've been looking down on ourselves because we don't have their wealth. We don't want their wealth. We want to cry to God, right? We want to cry to God. You got it. Hey, your house is bigger, man. You make more money. Hey, Hashem, please save me. I mean, what do you want me to do? You know, so I'm looking at a lot of the learning that we're doing as a way to reconfigure these experiences and see God was there with us the whole time. You know what I'm saying? And he was doing these things and moving us and teaching us lessons because look, the worst thing that happened was integration. We left schools. We had women and men that loved those children, right? That was giving them the skills to be smart. I mean, so many Black leaders come from those schools, you know, those grade schools, those situations, because they didn't let them in white schools. And then they put us in white schools and then they criminalize us. Go ahead.
This what day was that? Was that
First day.
First day. Excuse me. First day we took the children on the field trip to two schools within the Black communities here, and it's also a part of our own history as well. And these particular schools, the Black communities were thriving. I mean, like literally thriving. And what ends up happening is that they begin to get less funding, okay? And that's one of the reasons when there was some federal laws that changed when integration came about.
Yeah.
A lot of the European schools districts saw that as a financial benefit, and so they were restricting those benefits to those Black schools, and it forced those schools to literally integrate with the white schools. And in doing so, those schools just became dilapidated, abandoned.
And they're left just like that.
And literally to this day, when they became dilapidated, there was never an effort to restore them.
And it's beautiful.
And when you look at them, they were like, I mean, like magnificent. They were really strong structures, but they're still standing. Okay, they're still standing. I'll try to send you a picture of one of them. They're still standing, and they're historical markers. But when we integrated, what we did was we stopped looking at our fathers. We stopped looking at our ancestors, and we left them behind. Mm-hmm. And literally all of their work, all of their efforts, we just went on. You know, it's almost like we sold our heritage. You know, we just sold our heritage for another, and another has not been kind to us. You know,
I mean, let's keep it real. Let's talk about the Negro League. I mean, just think of all those athletes would have just stayed in those situations. I mean, there would be no National Baseball Association. You know what I mean? Like, but the point is saying we're here for ultimate destiny, right? So all this little like monetization stuff and manipulation stuff, and if we're connecting ourselves to the overall story of Israel, right? Then it's like, hey, our suffering is right in line with everyone else's. You know what I mean? It's not a unique situation. This is part, but that connection to God without any intermediaries, that's been the struggle. We've been struggling, but we've been talking to like an idol. You know what I mean? Like, we've been talking, and it's like even then we still been saved in many cases, right? But it's not the full connection. So anyway, so the point is saying that is looking at this study that we're doing as a way to reconfigure Black history when we look at the experience of the experience of the soul connected to Israel, right? Like Zerah Israel, in this aspect of coming to this land and having that history removed away from us, right? But nevertheless, this was part of God's plan, right? Just like every other group of Israelites that are around the planet Earth, even the people that don't even know that they're Israelites, right? They're also going to be redeemed according to the Zohar, right? All the people who are descendants that don't even know because they're so deep in the galut, in the diaspora, that even they're going to be redeemed. So for sure by us, right? So the thing is saying that it's being able to do that. So anyway, so 3/5 of a human being is really a code from God to really remind us of who we are. But the enemy, the person who wanted to destroy us, was telling us, and he had no consciousness or ability to understand the higher worlds because he would even understand what he's saying. He would never even said that, right? But because he didn't know, God put that in his mouth. So that point is saying that we are connected to the people of the neshama, right? The people of the highest order, right? The people. Go ahead.
No. I just got excited about what you just said. That's
Yeah,
all.
yeah. But actually, it's a way for us. We have to go and re-critique history based off of kedusha. So I'm saying something like, the whole idea of us being on the field, right? That's a connection to the first man, right? What did God tell Adam to do? He put him in the field. He told him to toil the field and guard the fence. That's what our job was, right? So we could keep going. But the point is that we got to reconfigure. We have to abandon the definitions of how to perceive reality from the system that we came from, because that system is rooted in oppression, right? So we have to use godly Torah lenses to do that. Okay, so let's go into Rav Ashlag. Okay, go ahead.
Hey, so just trying to reframe what. Let me just make sure I'm following what you're saying. So with this, we can actually take our chains, and our afflictions, and turn them into jewels, and say these
Yeah,
were actual jewels. Okay, I got you.
yeah, and their connections. You know what I'm saying? They're connection points. Like, what is God trying to teach us? God put us through slavery. What is he putting us through slavery for? Well, we're learning the Torah. We're in the Parsha Bo. Wow, okay. So you're saying that the same experience that's happening to the Jews in Mitzrayim, it happens in different ways. There's different Egypts that people deal with in different generations, right? And then even like just talking about this out loud right now, like you even got to ask ourselves, like, if we're saying that African Americans are connected to the seed of Jacob, Zerah Israel, right? And they got lost in this whole process. But then we also have to look at the white male, right? Who also came to this country, came before, right? Now his situation was that he was escaping what he was also saying was tyranny by him, right? Like they were escaping King George, right? So the thing is saying that, but that nation was Esau, right? That's the nation in that world. But these particular individuals in that nation were being persecuted, and they left, and they came to America, right? Right, and those are the ones who left, and they had the guts to even do it. Number one, that's a reckless, fearless abandon. So maybe there's a unification between Jacob and Esau between us, right? Like maybe it is something to be said that there is a connection between the forgiveness and the peace between Asaph and Jacob, but expressed to the white man and the black man in America. Maybe that's a tikkun. Maybe that's something that they had to work out together, and God put them through this whole experience so they could get past this level of thinking and achieve a new consciousness, because I believe that that white male is special, right? I would say that he is special and he came here with dreams and hope, but he did not know how to act out any other way but than the way he was treated, right? That's his way of understanding of functioning in society. So that was it. So I think there is work to be done, but through this wisdom, through that, we could focus on the souls. We could focus on the genealogy. We could focus on all these things and get out of just white and black and this and the history books and slavery and this. But we can say, hey, how do we heal this situation? Because maybe it's our job to heal the situation. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so this just just keep going. Okay, so we're in the Rav Ashlag. Okay, so I think we're starting at chapter 32, and we're getting out of this. We're going into this place of understanding this. Okay, so it says avodah okay, avodah Torah mitzvot lishma. Right, so he's saying do the Torah. So he says the third stage. Okay, the third stage. So just really quickly with the stages, right? We're kind of like okay, we're good. The point is the third stage is the first stage is the soul being rooted in selfishness. The second stage is it coming out after the stage of 13, and then in the third stage is the order of this process of purification, right? So how does it work? So it says the third stage is the service of Torah and mitzvot, and for its sake, in order to give benefit to the Creator, rather than to receive a reward, right? So the second stage is this, that I'm now 13. I now want to express this greater self and selfishness. I want to purify myself. Me, right? Now he's saying the stage beyond that is saying like, okay, I get the fact that, yeah, I need to receive, but Hashem's always going to provide for me. I don't have to, the refrigerator is always full, right? I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to say, well, what's in the refrigerator? I know it is full. So what happens then when you know that you're totally taken care of by the Creator, that all your needs are going to be met by the Creator? So what is your connection to the service of God, right? Learning Torah, doing mitzvot. What is that connection, right? That connection is what we call the Shema, right? Doing it for the sake, for its own sake. I'm doing the mitzvah because it's the mitzvah. I'm good. I'm not doing, I need to be saved. I need this money. No, everything's going to be taken care of, right? So he says, so this service purifies a selfish person to receive and transform into a desire to give. So this is the next level. One level is I'm selfish, right? The next level is I need to connect to God to break that selfishness, right? This third stage is God is already going to fix the selfishness. God has already provided me the future reality. And I just need to just be safe with God and do the things that He asks for no other reason, for the sake of Him asking, because the true reality, God is taking care of everything anyways. I'm already taken care of. I'm already doing. So I'm doing the precepts of the Torah because this is the reason, because God says this is the thing to do. Not because I need anything. Everything's going to be taken care of. God totally loves me. So he says to the extent that the desire to receive is purified, and the person becomes worthy and prepared to receive the 5 parts of the soul. Wow, we were just talking about this. Right? The 3/5 of the man. He said, which is referred to as the nefesh ruach, the nefesh ruach neshama chayin yakida. This is the abbreviation for it, as discussed below. So he says the 5 parts of the soul want to give, but they cannot become enclosed in the body. See that chapter 23. Their desire to receive controls the body, since the desire to receive stands in on the oppose. Jeez, I can't even say this. Hold on. So desire to receive stands in like opposition relationship to the soul, right? Since the body desires and the souls are, they're in opposition, right? oppositional, right? They're on two different sides of the world. So the body has a desire to receive, the soul has the desire to share, right? We talked about this, and as the soul is in the body, it becomes embedded in this desire to receive. So, or at least the desire to receive is different in form from that of the soul. For the matters enclosed in the equation of form works together. When a person becomes worthy and he becomes only a desire to give, wanting nothing for himself, he has equated his form with a higher aspect of the five parts of the soul. He said that extend from their source to Ensof. So he's saying, like, okay, so these five parts of the soul go way past the body, right? We think the whole soul is in the body, right? But really, truly, only the nefesh part of the soul is in the body. The other parts of the soul are going all the way to the heavens. So, like, we're literally walking around connected to the endless heavens. Like as far as the heavens go, we are like literally like you see like the guy on the puppet on the strings, and someone's up top and there's all these strings connecting it. This is the soul. The soul is one string and is totally connected to this higher reality, right? But that higher reality can only be accessed, right, when we purify ourselves to the point that we're able to do the mitzvahs and we're doing it for the sake of just doing it, right? For the sake for this for the well, hold on, so sorry about that. Somebody just called. Hold on. Okay. Okay. So yeah, so these higher aspects of the soul, the lowest part of the soul is rooted in the body, right? And in this lowest part of the soul that's rooted in the body is connected to these like levels and levels, right, above it that extend all the way to the endless world. And he's saying, so when we get to the level of sharing for the sake of sharing, we activate these higher levels that we have. Like they're there, but we have to activate them, right? And he says, when a person becomes worthy and he becomes only desired to give, wanting nothing for himself, he has equated his form with a higher aspect of these souls, of his soul, right? And he says, and extends from the source of the Ensof, the endless world, from the situation of unity through the sacrificed world of okay. So he's going into some technical terms, but the point is saying he says that these souls will flow with him and they will be enclosed in him one at a time, right? So it's almost like when you like we talked about that seed, when you're like in third grade or fourth grade and you plant the seed in a cup and you have the soil and water. Inside of that seed, you know, contains an entire tree, or in some cases an entire plant. But that seed has to go through a process of restriction, right? It has to go against itself, right? To be able to express this higher quality or these internal qualities that exist inside of us. And so that's what the Torah and the mitzvot allow us to do. It allows us to transform the desires that we have into one from receiving for oneself to receiving for the sake of sharing. And by doing that, we connect to this higher aspect. So he says, Abuda, hey nugi, acharei techayat hametim. So he says like this. So mechayah hametim. And so he says the fourth stage is the service performed after the creation, the resurrection of the dead. And he says the desire to receive, which will be completely eliminated through death and burial, is resurrected with the worst kind of expanded or exaggerated desire to receive. That is the secret of the dead are destined to be resurrected with all their blemishes. People then transform the body through receiving in the form of giving, as discussed at length. We learned this earlier. where there are rare individuals who perform this service even while living in this world. Now he just took it to a different level and that whole thing, and this is the thing. So he basically said that when people are resurrected, that the reason we said this before, but he wants us to say it again, obviously, right? So Rabbi Ashlag is teaching, and he's saying, hey, that when a person dies and they do the work they're supposed to do, their soul is transformed from one of receiving to one of sharing. So that soul, that person becomes buried after he does the work or she does the work they do in his lifetime. And so from there, the soul goes up to the heavens, right? After the body decomposes, right? So that body, which is rooted totally in selfishness and the desire to receive, that body decays into the ground. It becomes a part of the soil. And that soul goes all the way up to the heavens, right? All these different levels of the soul all connected and they go up to the heavens. Then Hashem says, it's time for you to come back because I have to perform the next miracle, right? Which is the resurrection of the dead, right? So those souls that did that correction come back down and they come back and Hashem like creates the body that they had before, the exact same body. And so this exact same body is now connected to this soul that is completely corrected, which thus makes this body correct itself as well. So the soul has the ability to correct the body, right, on this context of resurrection of the dead. And Rob Ashlag takes it a step further and says, not only people on the resurrection of the dead, he says there's people in this lifetime that have achieved this soul expansion where they were able to help people resurrect themselves. Now, when people hear that, they people think, oh wow, maybe he's talking about JC, right? The whole thing. But the reality is that people resurrecting from the dead and these types of things, there's tons of stories for thousands of years in Jewish literature that people that were healers, that were different things, and kids and this, whatever. So he's making the point. Now, by Christianity, I guess that's the one guy they heard about, right? Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. But the point is just saying that the sages don't even record it the way the church does. It's a whole other thing. But the point is just saying the idea of being able to resurrect people from the dead, there have been people who are doing it. And even in Israel, I've heard stories about people who were able to, whatever, to the outside, like to the outside world, these things don't exist, right? And there's no way, that's not how reality works. But I've seen and heard different. Okay, so let's just keep going. Not get too much into it. So he says, leit na'ar lanu leva'ar. So he says, like this. Now, he says, we can now answer the sixth inquiry. Okay. The sages state that all the upper and lower worlds are created only for man. But this surprising man is not even like a hair's breadth when compared to all of the things we witness in this world. How much more so is man's insignificance compared to all the upper and spiritual worlds? Why would God bother creating all of these for man? Moreover, what does man need with all the multiples and wonders of the upper and the spiritual worlds? Right. This is good. So let's ponder on the question, right? Because one of the things we always talk about, like in yeshiva and Torah learning, and we question, and we refer to it as a kasha, right? What is the kasha, right? What's the question, right? And so this idea of a kasha, and you have the answer, right? And we refer to the answer as a teretz, right? So you have the kasha, you have the teretz, right? So sometimes the kasha is so sweet, you just gotta just ruminate, you gotta chill on it for a minute. It's like that, it's like that piece of chicken that's like so cooked so good that you don't want to just eat it off so quick. You just gotta like chill with it. You're like, wow, look at this sauce. Wow, this is amazing. Right? Anyways, so the question is like this. He asked the question, who has the courage to ask such a question? Right? He said the sages state that he says everything in the world was created for man. Right? Everything, all the billions of galaxies, stars, planets, solar systems, meteorites, all this. every blade of glass, every ripple in the water, every snowflake, every raindrop, right? Every piece of mud, everything, right? And you're telling me the sun that rises that I can never even come close to because it will burn me into ashes? You're telling me that was created for me? You're telling me Saturn and Pluto and Neptune and Mars, they were all created for me, right? And then on top of it, you put me in a world and I feel so insignificant. Look how tiny I am. I'm so vulnerable, right? I could be squashed by a brick, God forbid, right? And he says, why would God bother creating all this for me? I'm never going to go and see the galaxy that's a billion miles away from me. Why does God have to create all this for me? Right? And he says, Ve'sarig she'ta'at shakol nachat ruach shel yiratseinu yit. So he says, and you must know that God's satisfaction from benefiting his creature is proportionate to the extent that the creature feels that God is the one giving to them and benefiting from them. So he's creating a principle. He's saying that we know that God created this world for these all these creatures, right, to exist, and for him to be able to share his benevolence with these creatures, right? However, what we also learned, in order for the creatures to desire God's benevolence, God had to inject into these creatures the desire to receive, right? It hasn't worked that way. So he's bringing up that idea again, and he says, remember, this is the whole thing, right? God created this world for these creatures, and that they should benefit, right? He said he greatly delights with them, these creatures, like a father who delights with his beloved son, to the extent that the son realizes how great and lofty his father is, and to the extent his father shows him all the treasures he's prepared for his son. As the verse states, is Ephraim not precious son to me, a delightful child? Whomever I speak of, whenever I speak of him, I remember him all the more. Therefore, I long for him inwardly, and will show him great compassion, declares the Lord. He says, if you examine this verse carefully, you can have great understanding and comprehend God's great delight, as long as those perfected creatures are worthy of feeling and appreciating God's greatness in all the ways that he prepares them. So this is a very interesting point. We're going to keep going, but this is a very interesting point. Why? Because he's saying that if you think about it, human beings are receiving all the time, right? That's the whole basis of how we're alive. Every single human being, all was it 9 billion, whatever it is, people on planet Earth are all receiving all the time. Okay, so that being the case, right? That being the case, then what is Rav Ashlag saying over here? He's saying that God's connection, right? God's connection to us has to do with our awareness that we're receiving it from God. That's the connection. The connection is not just that we're receiving. You're receiving. You're waking up every day. You're receiving. You're waking up that you're eating. You're waking up, and doing your yoga, whatever it is that you're doing. You're doing all these things. The question is, do you acknowledge that the strength, the food, the resources, the sustenance, all this is coming from the Creator? He says, and this is where the connection. He said, this is true to the extent that they maintain a dear father-son relationship, as much as the human father does with his own delightful son, as he explained by this verse to all who understand it. We need not expand on this. He says we only need to know that it was worthy of creating all the upper worlds and the lower worlds, as will be explained, for the sake of the delight and the satisfaction that God has for all these perfected creatures. So it's kind of like it's like an interesting thing. It's like when you go to someone's house for Shabbat, right? when you go to someone's house for Shabbat, and it's like, they go out and they buy special meats and this and wines, and they put out certain things. They create all these things. They didn't have to do that, right? They didn't have to do that, right? And you could just came over and had a regular thing. You would have enjoyed it, right? But the thing is saying that there's something about this creation of a world, of an ambience, to show how expansive and how much God and how great God is and how much God loves us. But I think we're going to understand more about it. He says, Uve kaved le hakin ed baritav sheto kulna le hagia. So he says, okay, so this part is saying the man, the goal of the world. In order to prepare his creatures to reach that lofty and elevated level, God wanted these actions to occur in 4 stages. That the following one from the other refers to as this inanimate, plant, animal, and human. So here are the 4 kingdoms. Okay, so we're going high level now. So the world is divided into these 4 kingdoms, right? So you have basically the rock kingdom, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, and the human kingdom. Here he's referring to them as 4 stages because he's going to imply and say or show us how the sparks of God generate evolve through the different kingdoms and how the human kingdom is the highest kingdom, right? So making it a little bit easy, a little cheat sheet. So he said these are needed. These are indeed 4 aspects of the desire to receive, and the upper worlds are also divided into 4 parallel levels. So he's saying in this world, the 3 levels of the vessel, rock, plant, animal, human, represent the desire to receive. And he says, in the same way, in the heavens, there's 4 levels as well that have this desire to share. He says, even though the ultimate goal is in the 4th level, human, it is not possible for that goal to appear immediately in the 4th level. It must first pass through the first 3 levels, through which it is revealed and slowly and developed slowly until it is perfected in the 4th level. Right? He says he's going to explain this level. Okay. Let me see this. I think we could do this. I think we could do this. We could do this. We could do this. We could do this. Right. So we got to know. We got to know. Right. Behine bechina et shel harishon lekabel. So he says. So he says. So he says the first level of the desire to receive is called inanimate. Right. He said, this is the beginning of the revolution of the desire to receive in this physical world. It contains only the general potential for motion that is in the present in each kind of inanimate object. But we do not see actual motion in the particular inanimate objects, but only in the species of inanimate objects. For the desire received begets needs, and needs begets the motion necessary to fulfill its needs. And since the desire to receive is small in inanimate objects, it is the desire to receive dominates only the general category at once, but its dominion over each individual instance is not recognizable. So again, it's like the inanimate world, like rocks, stones, dirt, these different things. Like he's saying that this is the beginning of the expression of desire to receive. And you say, like, wait, where did that come from? Right? Where did that come from? Right? So the Torah starts. It starts with Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim va'aretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So the earth, we understand the beginning of earth from the frame of rock, right? From inanimate, right? And we understand the heavens as a frame of sharing, right? And then the next verse talks about this idea of tohu vuhu, right? Of darkness, right? So, but it was rocky, right? So the beginning of the way God is explaining creation is exactly this way. He's not just it's not like he's just coming up. He's like we're saying, oh, Rabbi Ashlag is a prophet. Listen to it. No, he's explaining to you the depths of the secrets of the Torah, Now you can ask yourself, why did God have to start with the expression of earth being, muddy? I mean, being rocky, right? And having pits, right? Okay, so he says this is the first that he says not recognizable. He says, Nosef alav ha somot hasomocha shehu bechani veshel ratzon lekabel. So he says above is is the plant aspect. The second aspect of the desire to receive is greater than that of the inanimate, and the desire to receive is the desire to receive dominates each and every individual, not just the plant aspect. He says each individual plant moves independently as it spreads out near, far to follow the sun. Individual plants also have the need for food and drink, as it is as well as the need for to excrete, like go to the back. They release. He says they still do not contain, but they still do not contain individual feelings, right? So he said the first level is inanimate, right? Rocks, dirt, this type of thing, and this should be building a new relationship, right? Because we should be able to go outside and see all of the. We should not just look at trees we should be looking at different desires to receive, right? When we go outside now, we're looking at all the different desires to receive, and we're seeing ourselves now in this thing. So we're seeing plants. Plants have a more of a desire to receive than an inanimate, meaning the inanimate, that it grows slowly. People show like how mountains grow, rocks grow, these types of things. They break, different things happen over 1,000 years, these types of things. So you have that, right? We can see that there's some type of thought intelligence that exists inside of rocks, right? Now we're going into the thought intelligence that exists inside of plants, because that's the kingdom that's above in terms of desire to receive rocks, right? And so he's saying that as each individual plant moves independently, as it spreads out near and far to follow the sun, individual plants also have a need for food and drink, right? So they have this thing. So it says, Nosef alav min hachi. And so he says, Shehu bechanit gimel 3 shala raison lekabel medito kaver. So he says like this. So he says the above is the animal. He says above that is the animal element. The third aspect to the desire to receive, which is most completely present in this stage. 4, the desire to receive begets unique feelings in each individual. This is a distinct life force present in each individual, which makes one individual different than another. So it's interesting. So if we go back over this, what he's doing also, which I didn't like fully like hone in on, is that he's also comparing these aspects of the different levels of desire within us too. So there's an aspect of the desire to receive of the inanimate. There's a desire to receive, what is the aspect of the plant. There's an aspect of desire to receive, he's saying, it, with the animal. And he says, this distinct life force present in each individual, which makes us individuals more different than the other. So this aspect of being distinct, you could see it inside the animal kingdom more than per se the plant kingdom, right? In terms of personality, expressions, these different things, right? And so he says, what makes one individual different than the other? Still, they do not possess empathy for others, in that they have no ability to appreciate the suffering of others or enjoy the happiness of others. So we've seen those National Geographic things where we've seen the animal die and you see the animals gather around it and these types of things. So what is Rob Ashlag saying? He's comparing it to the level of a human being, right? And so he's saying that in terms of what makes it them similar is that they have this aspect of distinction, right? They have this aspect of distinct personalities and moods and emotions and these types of things. As where the kingdom lower than that, which is a plant kingdom, has the ability to follow, per se, God's will, right? God's will, and they're able to function, but they have a very low desire to receive, right? And they don't have the ability to have They don't express this idea of feelings and emotions and these different things in the same way that animals do, right? And he says, but by animals don't have this ability to connect to empathy. So it's important to hone in on that because it's important to see like what is a fundamental difference, right? What are the sages saying about the difference between an animal and plant kingdom, right? He said this is distinct life forces present in each individual, which makes individuals different from another. Still, they do not possess empathy for others, in that they have no ability to appreciate the suffering of others or enjoy the happiness of others. So that's interesting. So could a dog get happy per se? Right? Yeah, he comes home. You got the play is running around, blah blah blah. But does the dog have ability to be happy for the other dog, or for the cat, or for the cow, or for the human being? You know what I'm saying? Is the dog's protection of his master based off of his protection of himself, right? As his master is his provider, or or is he protecting his master because he empathizes with the danger that his master's in? Rav Asag is saying the dog is protecting his master because the dog is fighting for his preservation, right? And so he says, Nosef al klum min ha'adam, right? And so he says like this, Shehu Bechani Dalit. So he says, shall be shown. So he says, above that is the human element, which contains the fourth aspect of the desire to receive. That is the highest desire of perfection. In that it includes an element of empathy. Ve'im tartse lida be kamahu. So he says, I will explain precisely the difference between the third element of the desire to receive, present in animals, and the fourth element, present in humans, sorry. And it is like the difference between one specific creature and all the creatures as a whole. For the lack of desire to receive present in the animals lacking empathy, and it creates want and needs only to the extent necessarily for that particular creature. It's kind of like we were saying about the dog. Humans are different in that they are capable of empathy. A human can feel when someone is lacking something. He can become extremely jealous of that which another has. If a person has 100, he wants 200. His wants and his needs grow to the point that he wants to grab the entire universe. Okay, hold on. Okay. So this will be the last part we read on this point. It says ve achare ne v'sheni nikaver shakol ha tekili letna sele ha bore. So anyway, so she says it has been made clear that God's entire purpose in creating the universe is to give pleasure to his creatures. That is, they will recognize the truth of God and his greatness and will receive from him all the good and the pleasantness that he has prepared for them. He explained based on the verse, if Ephraim is not a possession of is Ephraim not a precious son of me? Therefore, it is equally clear that an inanimate object cannot achieve this goal. Neither can the celestial body, no matter how brilliant and large. Plants or even animals. All of these lack empathy. Even for creatures that are similar to them. How could they appreciate God's gift and goodness? Only the human being can achieve the goal of creation. You hear that? So you think if the goal of creation was for God to create these key creatures that he would be able to bestow to, and he had to be able to create the desire to receive inside of these entities. He's saying that the desire to receive exists in all of them, but only through the human being is there the ability to understand where it's coming from, right? Because the animal lacks empathy, it lacks the ability to see outside of itself. And the same thing exists in the plant kingdom, and the same thing exists in the inanimate kingdom. So the whole purpose of creation was for the light force of the creator to be received by its creatures, right? But the key thing is that through the acknowledgement of the creator, right? Because that's the point, right? That the sin is receiving from the creator and not thinking it's from the creator. Is it thinking it's from JC or Buddha or this thing or this thing? No, from the endless world, everything comes, right? Everything comes from the endless world. So when it comes into this world and you receive and you disconnect from that and you don't acknowledge that you threw the purpose of creation in the trash, right? And so he's saying over here that when the world is created for mankind is because mankind has ability to receive from the creator and acknowledge that it's from him. And so he says only humans can achieve this goal since they have the potential for empathy towards those who are similar to them, particularly after the service of Torah and mitzvot, which transforms their desire to receive into a desire to give, thereby equating their form with that of their creator. After that, they receive all the parts prepared for them in the upper worlds, all the upper souls. So just read this again. He says, particularly after the service of Torah mitzvot, right? Since they have the potential for empathy towards God, who are similar, empathy towards those who are similar to thee, particularly after the service of Torah mitzvot, which transforms the desire to receive into the desire to give. So it's through this acknowledgement of the Creator, through the performance of the mitzvot. So now we understand what the mitzvot are. The mitzvot are now giving us the avenue to receive God in a frame of acknowledgement. And why, when we receive that from God with acknowledgement, that light, that 99% reality, that energy that is connected to that 1% reality, that 99% reality that we have that comes inside of our soul, corrects it and transforms it piece by piece, moment by moment, mitzvah by mitzvah, from the desire to receive to the desire to share. Therefore, equating their form from that of their creator. After that, they receive all the levels prepared for them in the upper worlds of the upper worlds of nefesh, ruach, neshama, chai, yakida, which prepared for them to receive the goals embedded in the plan of creation. In short, man is the purpose of creation of all the worlds. So we'll stop here. Okay, so he's gonna attack philosophers now after that. Okay, so we stop at 40. Okay, so let's review. Thoughts, reflections. He simplified it a lot, no?
Yeah, that was very understandable. This is it's it really makes you take self evaluation. And it's interesting because when we don't have that level, when you see individuals like for example, when you deal with sociopaths, right? Sociopaths, the biggest psychological problem that they have is that they express a lack of empathy. That they don't even have the ability to empathize, and they will actually tell you that they don't even like they can't recognize when something is like funny, something is joyous. They don't feel or express when someone is hurting. And so what those sociopaths do is when they begin to get some therapy and some training, is that they learn how to mimic. And so that's why they like to be around groups of people, because it makes them feel more human. Because they tend to look at, like, if someone starts laughing or they hear a joke, they mimic laughing, right? And so it's a very, very strange thing. And so I wonder, like, when we deal with like mental illnesses and problems like that, like, how do you address those? Because as we try to become more holy, and become in our souls, uh, begin to really correct the flesh and correct our bodies. Like, where does those that have mental illnesses, where do they fit in, and how do they get assessed? And that's just kind of where my mind went to with dealing with as we were going through these stages.
Yeah, it's a big deal. You know what I mean? And yeah, I've been able to meet different people, with mental illness. A lot here in Israel, and something about Israel, Jerusalem attracts kind of like that type of energy a little bit. Like people kind of like at their last stage of life, maybe they just came to Israel, work out. You know what I mean? This type of thing. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. Mental illness is a whole different thing because everything we're talking about is being conscious, and being able to rationalize and to be able to reflect and go ahead, go ahead.
As you said that about Israel, and as you said that, it made me think about I was doing some reading about the Rebbe that's a part of the what is the Lubavitch movement.
Yeah,
Uh, and no, not the Baal Shem Tov, Rebbe
Lubavitch
Chabad.
Rebbe. Yeah, Lubavitch
Yes,
Rebbe.
yes.
Yeah, Menachem
He did
Shneerson.
some, yes, he did some work on for families that had children with autism.
Mm.
Okay, and there was one thing that he did that was consistent. He said, teach them to give Zedekah. Teach them to give Zedekah, because what that would do is and their bodies are actually performing
Nice.
like I said,
It's a
that
form of
level
it's a
of,
form of empathy training. He was trying to create empathy in the child to
wow, yeah.
understand the needs of other, but that would transform it. You're right. It's a big deal. You know what I mean? And the thing is, it was tough. Is that growing up, my parents were like really like into therapy. Like really into it. And it was like weird because I didn't know anybody else like this. And this is like long. This is like 20 something years. I'm not trying to age myself, but you know what I mean. This is a long time ago, right? This is us growing up. But the thing is, just saying that, now that I'm older, you know, I see how big it is if you don't deal with some of these issues and different experiences that we had, in our life, and if you don't deal with those things, they could drive you crazy. They could shut down your ability to empathize. It's an actual part of the brain, right? That could become damaged through that. I think they even showed something like with people who are in war and say they shoot a child, right? It affects something in their brain, their cognitive patterns of empathy, which makes it easier for them to do it again. The same thing like with a murderer, right? Like the more that they do it, the more desensitized they become to that whole thing. So it's actually go ahead.
That's why I believe that kosher slaughtering is so powerful. It's very powerful, because when we slaughter based off of when we slaughter sheep or goat or yeah, chicken, whatever it is, when we do that and we go through that process of that halakha process, it actually guards you and protects you from making this common. It really is an emotional thing. It's very sensitive, and you don't you honestly you tend to eat less meat when you actually do it, because you realize, man, this is a life, and it allows you that opportunity versus a hunter, someone that's going out hunting. I mean, I know guys that go hunting all the time, and they don't realize, it's like it's a common thing for them to kill something, and it's like man, we just took a life, you know. And it's very interesting that you brought that up, because that the locker actually protects you from losing from that, you know, because even though it's a child, if you take an animal and you not, there's no empathy about that, you know, there's no, you know, but it helps protect you.
Yeah, and the thing is, so just even on the exactly what you're saying is like the point that Rabbi Ashlag brought out. He brought it down. He was like, hey, you know, every human being on planet Earth is receiving from the life force of the Creator all the time. That's how we're able to be alive. I'm breathing. This is all the life force of the Creator. The question is, what is our mechanism to acknowledge that it's coming from the life force of the Creator? And by acknowledging that it comes from the life force of the Creator, we connect to what God is giving to us on a whole new level. And so the commandments, the 613 commandments, are there for us to acknowledge a key points in our life, in our existence, of God's light coming in, so we can ultimately receive that light, right? Receive it in its highest, purest level. Now, the thing is, he brought another example after that, which is the kingdom of the world, and he showed all the different kingdoms, the rock kingdom, plant kingdom, animal kingdom, human kingdom. And he showed all these different kingdoms, and then from these kingdoms, he's able to show us the different levels of the desire to receive, right? And he shows us how, animals have the ability to move, to have movement, right? Like they can get up and just move and travel places, whatever. As where the plant doesn't have that level of desire to receive, to move, right? But the animal does, right? And go ahead.
I was, when you was just bringing it up, I was thinking about the different kingdoms, and I particularly, like observing the plant kingdom. And one of the things, like you were saying, that the plant kingdom, it does not have the ability to move. One of the plants we were just studying, I think it was yesterday, was the burdock plant. And as we're talking about, the plants have the low level of receiving. One of the Now, would this be considered like the plant giving when when it comes into maturity and it goes into a flower? It then becomes like these little burrs, and they are clingy, and so they can't move on their own, but they'll like cling to like animals, or they'll cling to like clothes. And as the person moves around, or as the animal moves around, then it disperses the seeds and allows, the cycle to start again. So where exactly are plants more givers, or are they, since they're low on the receiving end? That's just a question that
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have.
no, that's a great question. So the thing is, so now that we have this language, right, to analyze these things together, now we could look at, even within the plant kingdom, there's different levels of desire to receive, right? Right, because the plant eventually progresses, as he said, into a higher kingdom, which is animal, right? So what is that process of that elevation, which is a whole conversation, by the way. But the point he's just saying is that process of evolution, is that so within the plant kingdom, there's all the different types of plants. There's some plants that actually have some level of mobility, right? But he said the main thing about the plants is that they have only the capacity to follow the sun, right? They go in the direction of the sun, and that's where their limitation is, right? However way it manifests, where an animal has ability to, it has complete movement, right? And it has personality, right? But it lacks this ability to care about things outside of itself, right? And so man is the creature that has ability to empathize with other people, right? And through this empathizing with other people, with other things, we can recognize God, right? And so this recognizing of God, this recognizing of God is in essence the basis of what makes us human beings. So the ability to empathize. So let's take that to just another level before we go into this halakha. The level of this is to say that when I pray or when I do a mitzvah, I have in mind the light coming to all of humanity, right? I want to empathize with people all over the world that are struggling, people who are struggling, people who are lacking things, people who may be looking for the same things as I am, and maybe I could see myself in the universal sense and say, hey, in the areas I'm lacking, so are there billions of other people around planet Earth are lacking, right? Especially if I'm saying that I am Israel, right? Because the whole context of Israel, we are responsible for humanity. We are a light to the nations. So part of being a light to the nations is taking accountability for all of humanity, saying, hey, I have the technology to talk to God in a way that no other nation does. My desire to receive is greater by definition of my daily task. The other person, the other nation has no desire to do these things. They're weird to them, right? Why do you have to do so much, right? So I have this super desire to receive. So this desire to receive that's bringing light into the world is not just for me, because I have expanded consciousness. That expanded consciousness encompasses all of humanity. So now I'm expanding my ability to be empathetic. I'm expanding my ability to care about others, which makes me what? A higher version of man, of mankind, right? And this is the, go ahead, go ahead.
So that brings us back to how we started the conversation, and by by Israel walking in the manifestation of understanding that everything that was created, even to the highest galaxies, it was just Hashem's way of showing us that uh, the possibilities are endless for us, and that He loves us so much. And now we express our understanding of everything that we receive and have by doing the mitzvot, and performing his Torah through our lives.
Sorry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, so very nice. And you brought up a very important point too. Very important what you just said. So Rav Ashlag talks about this expansiveness of the universe. This expansiveness of the universe is there to invoke our desire, to make us crave even more, to say, like, hey, you know what? We got to go to Pluto. We got to go to Mars. Our desire is bigger, right? He says you give a person $100, his desire doubles. He wants $200, right? So that's the whole point of expansion, is to sit back and say, hey, I have a desire. The God made the world so vast and so expansive to inspire our desire, right? To connect to Him, right? So the expansion of the desire of the universe is an expression of our inner desire being manifest physically. He's showing us that we have the capacity to want to go to Saturn, right? What is that? That's closer to Hashem than we are on Earth, right? Or the endless world. It's not Hashem, the endless world, the Ein Sof, right? The endless world with that. So with this being said, we have to see the experiences that we've been through and the different things culturally and this and say, wait, no, we're being prepared for something. The world is much bigger. The world is not about, who made the most money from the plantation. You know what I mean? It's a much bigger thing because we have a huge potential here, and nothing could stop that. And the main thing is this understanding that we're receiving God's light right now. And we say, thank you, Hashem. Once we said that, we manifested the purpose of creation. And that's who we are. Okay, so let me get this. Any last points on this before we move on? Okay. Okay. So far, look, 76. Wait, was 76? Oh, 1 second. 75. All right. Okay, so we're back in the Shulchan Aruch. We're going to very high levels, right? And we're talking about very high ideas. And so when you're doing that, we gotta bring it, we gotta ground it, right? We gotta ground it, we gotta bring it down, and nothing brings things down to the material level better than halacha, right? Just the basic rules of the game in certain areas. And by doing this, we connect. Okay, so is your husband there?
He's coming right back, Rabbi. He
Okay, no
needed to
problem.
be.
Yeah, we'll
He's
wait for him. We'll wait for him. No problem.
okay.
All right, cool too. Yeah. By the way, I should be doing. God willing, we'll be doing Zion Lex tonight. So look up that. We learn Rav Ashlag. He's loving it. He's loving it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So we're back in the Shulchan Aruch, the Book of Laws. We're learning some very high level concepts, and it's always important to bring it down, land the plane. Right now we're in galaxies, we're in planets, we're in solar systems. Okay, let's bring it down to the practical. Let's bring it down, all that light, let's bring it down this world. So we always got to study a combination of both, right? So he says, Chayav kol adam le hafrish asmo mi malachado ule hadilin ed ha nora leko. Okay, so he says, every person must put all work aside to light candles, to and light candles, and light the Shabbat candles at least a half an hour before the stars come out. If they recite Mizmor Shir at HaShabbat in the synagogue, even though there's still 2 hours until night, nevertheless, the Shabbat law is binding on the minority and they are forbidden. So they're saying like, so if a person goes to shul and they start Kabbalah Shabbat and they start singing certain things, even if the sun is out, once you go into that frame of Shabbat is here and you're greeting Shabbat, um, you can no longer light candles, right? So you got to do it 30 minutes before and before you start the Friday night davening at shul. All right. He says, nevertheless, the Shabbat law becomes binding to the mind. Okay. He says, even someone who arrives from another city is obligated to observe the laws of Shabbat as soon as the congregation has said Mizmor. So when the people of that area start singing that, it's too late. It's not even if you're not even there, right? So you got to know what time shul starts in certain places, because the idea, is to say that once the community sets a standard that they started Shabbat, you don't want to be the guy who's lighting, because then it looks like you're breaking Shabbat, and that's a whole nother set of issues. This, whatever, right? He says, in a city that's two synagogue, one is not bound by the other. Okay, so that's another point. So when there's just one culture, you're bounded, but if there's different ideas in a place, so he says mitzvah le harbot mahanerot le kavod Shabbat. So he said it's a mitzvah to light many candles in honor of Shabbat. Some are accustomed to lighting 10. Okay, we're not saying you got to go crazy. Some people. I know some. I'm just saying. I met some women, and it's like a sanctuary over there. You know what I mean? You're just like, man, like this, like what's going on? Like this is this just for Shabbat? Like what's going? Anyway, hey, do as you feel. Some people have different customs. They light candles for friends and family that aren't able to be there with them. Maybe people who passed away. Maybe it's the death anniversary of a famous prophet. Chief Rabbi Pinchas, he talks about when a person goes on their spiritual journey and then they go through their transformation process, that they should light a candle for the person that used to be, right? And lighting a candle for the person who got them to the point where they could learn the mitzvot, right? And before then, they were living without any mitzvahs. I mean, imagine now thinking about this. You're a human being, you receive all day, all night, and you never acknowledge that the creator even exists, right? And you never acknowledge that the creator even exists. And the thing is, it's like, and you didn't even fulfill the purpose of creation. You may have had a job, you may have made tons of money, this type of thing. But if you never did this, it's like you never even lived. You're a Rasha, right? And if you notice, the wicked people, they're the ones with the least amount of empathy, right? The people who are thieves, the people robbers, burglars, all these people do terrible things to people. They have no empathy, which means they have no connection to God, which means they have no understanding of God, which means they don't understand this relationship, right? And he says, and in no event, he says, and in no event should less than two candles be symbolized. So you can't do less than two candles at once. Now, this is the thing about it. The thing is, what is the main idea in the Ten Commandments that it says about Shabbat? It says, Zikaron, you should remember Mikadesh. You should make it holy, right? You should make it Kodesh, right? You should make it Kodesh. You should make it holy. You should make it isolated. So he's saying Shamar to preserve, and Zachor to remember, right? So this is the main idea. So that's the idea of saying that when a person is lighting candles, they have to have in mind that they're fulfilling, right? They're fulfilling the commandment to keep Shabbat holy and to remember it, right? And so it says like this. He says, in the time of pressing needs, even, he says, in a time of pressing needs, even one candle is suffice. All right, if you don't have, hey, you're in the middle, there's places in the world where candles are scarce, right? So if you just got one candle and you have kavana, you still did the job, right? So it's very important, right? Maybe you forgot, God forbid. So maybe you forgot, oh, I forgot to get candles. This happened to me before. And you only got one candle left, right? Okay, so you're okay. So he says the candle should be long enough to burn at least until after the meal, right? Really, the idea is to say, if you want to be technical, at least 30 minutes after Shkia, after the sun sets, right? You light the candle before the sun sets, right? And so the candle should be able to go at least 30 minutes after, at least, I mean, my candles, usually go to the end of the meal, but I mean, I think most candles go for like 5 hours or something. I don't know. It just depends. But the point is saying this is the idea. He said, you should endeavor to buy the best candles. For Rav Huna says, he who habitually practiced the lighting of Shabbat candles, who endeavors to buy the best ones, will have sons who are Torah scholars. As it says, for the mitzvah is a candle. For the mitzvah is a candle, and the Torah is a light. He says, through the mitzvah of the Shabbat candles will come the light of the Torah, and therefore it says it is therefore fitting for women to pray at the candle lighting time for the Holy One, blessed be He, to grant her sons who are bright to be bright in their study of Torah. Prior to lighting candles, it is good to give some charity. He says, and women who have trouble raising their children or who have no children at all should recite the Haftorah of the day of Rosh Chodesh, of Rosh Hashanah after the candle lighting. So if a woman's having issues with her kids, or say a woman's not having kids, he says after you light your candles and you say the bracha, you could read the Haftorah. So you're going to Haftorah for Rosh Hashanah. So Rosh Hashanah has a Torah reading, and they also have a Haftorah reading. So he says, so you could read that. So he says, these are like things. It's not a halacha. It's just some sages did it, and they felt it was a great insight. Women did it, whatever. I don't know. But the point is saying it's not the halacha. The halacha is to light candles, right? Two light candles, and you should in mind have two, but the worst case scenario is one, but you can do as many as you want. All right. He says also good if you understand what she is saying, and she should say it with concentration. He says, mitzvah min ha mukhar le ha kilik ha beishamen zait. So he says, it is a mitzvah done in the perfection to light with olive oil. But even the oil we commonly use that is called bitul, I don't know how to say it, is kosher. He says, but among other oils, there are some that are not kosher. Regarding the wick too, it is best to use cotton, flax, or hemp. Among others materials, there are some that are not kosher. And in the country where we are accustomed to light candles of tallow, which are kosher, but putting a piece of fat into the vessel and inserting a wick into it is forbidden for the purpose of candle lighting. So I guess some people have this custom where they take a piece of fat, they put a stick in it. Sounds like some like other stuff. So he says, and one who lights the candle must light them until the fire ignites. Most of the wicked protrudingly from the candle. The same applies to the candle made tallow. The fire must ignite most of the wicked that protrudes from the candle. Kaver Yedua Shakola Hamitzvot Meirakim Alehem Over Le'asiya Tan. So he says, it has already been established that the bracha for all the mitzvahs must be said during the mitzvah. But this does not apply to lighting the candles, right? So when you eat an apple, you say Bere Pri Ha-Eitz, right? You say the full bracha, but that's what you say, right? Right before as it's going in right before you put it in your mouth, right? So he says like this. He says, but this does not apply to candle lighting. Candlelight, he says, lighting Shabbos candles, for by lighting the candles, the woman ushers in the Shabbos. And since the bracha is beginning of the lighting, if she makes the bracha first, she will no longer be able to light the candle. Therefore, she lights the candle, and in order that the bracha be said before doing the mitzvah, she covers her face with her hand so that she does not see the candles. And she says the bracha and then removes it. So it goes like this. As you guys know, but we're just going over it. So he's saying that. So you put the candles up and you light the candles. Then you cover your eyes, right? And then you say, you could you can move your eyes away if you don't know the bracha by heart, but you cover your eyes and you say the bracha, right? And then you move your eyes away, and there the light is there. Now I'm gonna say a little secret, and this is what the Zohar says, right? You may have heard me say it before. I think I've said it before in class. I'm not sure if it was by you guys, but the Zohar says like this. Why is it important for women to light candles? Now, men are supposed to light candles, right? I light candles every Shabbat. I feel a very powerful connection with it. I like candles, and so the thing is like this. The thing is to say that when right before Shabbat came in during the times of Adam and Chava, right? Adam and Chava, they're there. So what happens? A famous story: the serpent comes, she eats from the Eitz Hadas, and then eventually Adam eats from it, right? Now the thing is like this: when she ate from the Eitz Hadas, she brought a dark light into the world that diminished the organus, right? And then the organus was what we call now the concealed light, but it's the light that when Hashem says "Vayomer Elohim ve'ahi or ve'ahi or," that light is what lit the world up, right? That is the light that we understood the day one and day two, right? I mean, before the sun and the moon were created, right? We look at now, okay, the sun's here, the sun's not here, day and night. But really, it's the revealed light. So when that happened, the light was diminished in the world. So when women light the Shabbat candles, it's at the same exact time when Chava ate from the tree, because Chava ate from the tree right before Shabbat. Like right before Shabbat happened, she ate from the tree, right? Like an hour before, 18 minutes before, 30 minutes before, but it was at that time, right? And so when a woman lights candles and she covers her eyes, she's thinking about the light that was diminished through her action. So really, the woman is doing a correction for the first woman, Chava, her great grandmother. Her grandmother made a mistake, and she listened to this other desire, the desire to receive, and she ate from this tree and she suffered, right? And so now, thousands and thousands and thousands of years later, the women who are connected to her, right? The women who have empathy, the women who could contemplate God, who could understand responsibility for others, right, on a massive level, and understand God without any intermediaries, without physicality, right? Those women are now doing that correction. He said the most important candles of which the Shabbat is welcome are those that are on the table of the meal is served. So they saying you should light the candles on the table, and therefore she should light them last in the time of need when she has to immerse herself in a mikvah or go to a marriage ceremony or for other important matters, she may light them with the stipulation that she is not amusing, that she is not amusing the holiness of the light of. She's not assuming the holiness of Shabbat with the lighting, and she can say the bracha before lighting in this regard, even if the mental reservation is insignificant. So this is something that I do personally. So what happens is like, Shabbos is coming in, candle lighting is a whole thing, right? So what I do is, and my wife, she would, she just kind of like goes and does it. But me personally, I will light the candles and then I will continue doing whatever else I got to do. And I'll get ready and everything. And then after I'm ready, I'll go over to those same candles and then I'll say bracha. And then by when I do the bracha, I'm taking on Shabbat, right? So that's what he's saying by over here. So if you have something to do, this, whatever, blah, 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 this is the whole thing. So it says, "Mi mitzvad." So it says, "Had la chata nora hala bein al as anashim." Okay, so he says, in the mitzvah of lighting candles is incumbent on both men and women, but the women are urged to be more concerned with the mitzvah because they are usually at home lighting candles time. So I just told you the Kabbalah, going back to Eve. Now, if you just read this, oh wait, maybe it says, okay, wait. I spoke too fast. The woman extinguished the light of the world when she caused Adam to sin. Wow. And darkened the world in the darkness in the darkening his soul, which is called light. He says, and it's written, the light of God in the soul of man. Therefore, women must make amends for this by lighting candles in honor of Shabbat. Therefore, it is the woman in her home. She takes precedence in performing this mitzvah. Nevertheless, a man should assist with the mitzvah. He should prepare the candles and he should string them, and that is, he should light them and extinguish them, making it easier to light them afterwards. Um, Therefore, after a woman gives birth, the husband should light candles the first Shabbat and say the bracha. But after that, and each and every time she's in a nida, he should light them and say the bracha. That's interesting. So no ha agot hanashim she kodem hadlachat hanerot. So he says, and before lighting candles, women customarily wash themselves and dress up in Shabbat clothes. Fortunate are those who do so. When she must recite mincha before lighting candles, because by lighting the candles, she's assuming that she's taking on Shabbat, right? So once she lights the candles, she's in Shabbat. She can't do any of those things anymore. Game over. Once she lights the candles and does the bracha, right? When she does the bracha, then it's over. Lighting the candles is fine, but once you say the bracha, then the whole game starts. He says, and she can no longer pray the weekday prayer, a mincha, because she's now in Shabbat. She's no longer in the week. If a woman was delayed by her occupation or business and came home close to a half an hour before Shabbat, if she would then wish and drive, there would be a risk of desecrating Shabbat. It is greater mitzvah to light the candle as she is rather than risk it. So if a woman's like, she's dealing with 1,000 things, she's, kids all over the place, blah, 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 she forgot to do this, and she's like, okay, well, if she's not able to, I would imagine a woman who has a lot of kids, it'd be not the easiest thing for her to have all of her clothes on perfectly and her hair and all the things that women do, and have the house and the kids and all that. So he's saying, if you're not in that place, like a girl who's like single, she doesn't have any kids, she could get all dressed up and she looks all pretty on Shabbos. That changes by the second kid, right? Let's be real about it. Okay, so he says, so if she feels she's gonna mess up Shabbat, she just needs to light the candles and keep it moving in the moo or whatever she's like. Okay, if the husband comes home late and is a great mitzvah for him to light the candles and disregard her resentment. I didn't understand that. So we're going to keep going with that. Im ha'ish madlik hanerot. So he says, when a man lights the candles, knowing afterwards he must perform a task, it is also advisable for him that he stipulates that he's not assuming the holiness of Shabbos with this lighting, but he did not make this reservation. He is still permitted to do work after lighting, because when the husband lights the candle, it is not ordinary an act of ushering in the Shabbat. Sirikin lehadlika bemakom she'o kalu. So he says the candle must be lit in the room where the meals are served in order to indicate that they were lit in honor of Shabbat. They should not be lit in one place and transferred to another place. However, in time of pressing need, for instance, when the woman is sick and unable to go to the table, she may. Sorry about that. Okay. So, however, in time of pressing needs, for instance, when a man is sick and unable to go to the table, she may light them at her bed, and they may be placed on the table in the house, because the whole house is considered their place. And a woman who light candles in the sukkah and brings them into the house afterwards are not doing the proper thing. A candle that is burning before Shabbat must be extinguished and then relit in honor of Shabbat, in order to make it clear that this is lit for the honor of Shabbat. All right, hold on. I just want to see how many more halakas we have here. Okay, let's stop at this halakha. We'll stop here because we've been going for a little bit, and we'll keep on. It keeps going. It's going to go through scenario upon scenario, but it's good to go through these things, right? And to see these scenarios, and to build off of any questions on the lighting or anything like this.
Yeah, can you go back to the section that talks about when the woman is on nida? Do she or does she not?
She it's better if she didn't.
She didn't, right? Okay.
And the husband assumed it. It's like after childbirth, and also.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, need that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. People calling me right now. It's crazy.
Go back, Kaya.
Okay, so anyways, we're back tomorrow. Right? Okay. So we're back tomorrow. So we could end it here. Any last thoughts, any reflections?
Very good. Oh. It helped me out a lot.
All right, so we'll keep going with it. We'll keep going through it. Mm-hmm. All right, so we'll end here. Again, it was a pleasure learning. We'll continue on, and Hashem shall reward us and hear our prayers. And we need help. We need Hashem and Kodesh Tov.
Yes.
So we got the new moon. If you guys want, we can learn some halakas tomorrow for Rosh Chodesh. But I mean, like, it's like a chill day. But we'll stay with the candle lighting. We'll finish with the candle lighting.
Yeah.
And we'll just do different parts of Shabbat, candle lighting, this, whatever. We'll do a whole series. But we'll do the candle lighting, and then we'll continue on. Baruch atah Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.
Amen.